All right, what's up, guys? Josh Crain coming to you from a snowy Middle Tennessee. I've been cleaning up my office a little bit today, doing a little this and that. Had a class this morning that we taught on basic gun safety down in Murfreesboro. Got that done before the roads got too bad. But I've got my good friend, longtime friend, and a business person. This is a guy that you've heard me talk about before. He's handled all of my personal security now for several years and does a lot of special events for me and some of my friends. Randall Roby. Randall, what's up, man?
What's happening, Josh? Man, it's cold over here. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Getting
y'all got
snowed
hit
under.
first. Yeah, y'all got hit first. One of my buddies down here sent me a photograph of West Tennessee about 6 o'clock this morning, and y'all were
Yeah,
already getting hammered.
yeah. It started here between 3:30 and 4 this morning. We started getting pretty good snowfall, but it's all switched over to sleet now. So
Yeah, well, that's what it's doing here now too. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
yeah,
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you taking some time and
yeah,
jumping on
absolutely,
this with me
absolutely.
today. You know, you and I were texting back and forth on some other business that we're doing right now, and I don't even know how it happened, but we kind of got sidetracked on this whole issue that we saw unfold this past week in Minnesota, where you had some folks trying to worship Don Lemon and a bunch of his crew, I guess, decided to create a major disruption. I just saw maybe a day or so ago that the Department of Justice did try to get an indictment against Don Lemon, which was shot down by a federal judge. Surprise, surprise. But as we were kind of texting back and forth, you know, one of the things that you and I started talking about was the approach that a lot of security teams are taking or not taking within various congregations and what individuals can do. So we can talk about security teams. I mean, I'd certainly be interested to hear what your intel is like. I know you're constantly communicating with congregations all across the country. I'm on a much more limited basis, but I have had conversations with a handful of people, and my sense has been team leaders, those men that are in charge of security teams at congregations, they are keenly aware of this threat that existed up in Minnesota. They're keenly aware of the possibility that that kind of thing can happen in local congregations, and they're working with what they have to try to figure out how to address it. But I'm also figuring out a consistent theme, as long as I've been talking to churches, that there's a huge disconnect between leadership within the church recognizing that this is a legitimate issue and the security team people saying, no, 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 it actually is a legitimate issue that we need to have a plan for. Is that kind of what you're feeling, or are you seeing something different?
No, that's absolutely the case. I mean, I see it over and over again. It's not unique to churches, but we're talking about churches here just because of what happened in Minnesota here recently. But in churches especially, you have a couple of different things that happen in my estimation, just from what I have seen over the years now of dealing with them, is you have leadership by committee is always, if you want to make sure nothing goes forward, form a committee. That'll guarantee that it doesn't move forward.
That's a fact.
So that's one thing. The other is a genuine disconnect between the folks who are making decisions and the folks who are executing those decisions then once they've been made. There is a genuine disconnect that exists, and from what I have seen, it's not unique to any one denomination. It's not unique to an area of the country. It's not unique to the size of the church or anything else. I mean, it is truly a universal principle that seems to apply for whatever reason. I haven't studied it, but it does apply. So this is anecdotal, but I do see regularly church leadership who may become motivated because of an incident that takes place. We had one here in the Middle Tennessee area with the Covenant school shooting.
Mhm.
That motivated some churches and some private schools to take action. And then anytime you have a severe weather event, that motivates people. I mean, in the next 2 weeks there'll be more salt and shovels sold. I mean, it's wild. That's just the nature of people. Um, but then there's also your folks who are charged with executing those plans that a church might develop, or that a team that's been put together or whatever, the folks that execute those, I want to walk a very careful line, I guess, and you'll understand where I'm coming from with this. I am not an advocate of the militarization of churches.
Right?
I am
Yeah.
I don't want to form a SWAT team that pats people down when they walk through the door of the building. I have zero desire for that whatsoever. In fact, if Icanos is the one who teaches it, the average congregant would never see the safety team. Period. They would never even know they existed. That's the way we teach it. That's the way we present it. We don't want to be an interruption. We don't want it to be something that's distracting. But at the same time, we recognize the fact that it's got to be in place, because allowing a disruption, or a protest to break out in the middle of your worship services, um, with no plan in place on how you're going to deal with that, or no ability to intervene in that effectively, is just not a place that I would want to find myself as a congregation.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, I think on average, what you just described is exactly where most congregations fall. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in my experience, and I've worked with a handful of congregations over the past few years doing specific security team training. Um, the people that are on the team, I think, by and large, they mean well. They're dedicated. They're devoted to that particular responsibility within the church, but they're also very restrained or constrained, is I guess actually the better term, by leadership. And
Mhm.
I'm like you. I mean, I don't think we need to have security teams that are walking around in SWAT gear, carrying rifles. I don't think we need that. But I think there's something between that and where they allow most teams to exist that's actually the sweet spot. And we just, for whatever reason, we can't convince them to get there a lot of times. But as I was thinking this morning and kind of texting back and forth with you, the thing that popped in my mind was, okay, well, we need to then separate this out into a different issue to address. And that is really the same kind of thing that I teach and I know you teach when we're talking about, typical civilian classes. When I'm doing a self-defense class or an emergency medical class or something like that, there's a phrase, and I didn't come up with it. It's been around for a long time, but it's you need to be your own first responder. And the idea behind that is if your entire plan for your safety, for your ability to respond to a medical emergency, if your entire plan is call 911 and wait, you don't really have a plan, and bad things are going to happen in that period of time that you're waiting. So, along those same lines, what I'd like to do is let's flesh out three or four things that we can offer to the average individual, not the security team, not the leadership, but John Q, Jane Q, and Baby Q, who are going to show up at church services the next time, but maybe they have paid attention to this stuff that's going on or went on in Minnesota. Maybe they are concerned about, man, what do we do if that kind of disruption happens at our place of worship? What are some things that the average person needs to be aware of? What kind of plan can they build on a very basic level to try to ensure they are prepared?
Right. I I think it's huge, and I'll I'll say this too, just at the outset of this. It, my partner, he and I work together. We've been together since we were both. Oh boy, we were both in uniform service when we first started working together. His name's Sammy. Sammy and I have worked together for a long time. He still works with me here at Icanos. Phenomenal guy. Um, Sammy sent me a patch not too long ago, and it's one that I think I've seen on some of your gear. I know it's on my gear, carried on. It's on my It's on my ouch pouch, I know, but it's hope is not a plan.
Right.
And that's it's just hoping that it'll be okay, or hoping that it doesn't happen here, or hoping that 911 answers the phone and comes quickly. That's not a plan. Yeah, I mean, you got to understand. I spent my career in Memphis, uh, and that's enough. I'm just going to
The,
stop there.
the National Guard is there right now.
Right, but in Memphis, no joke. I mean, it was very common to hear 911, please hold. I mean, that's who wants that, right? I mean,
No,
that's
that's
not
that's
that's not what you want to hear. If I'm standing here staring down a crowd or an emergency situation, 911, please hold is not what I want to hear. And if
right.
that's my plan, that was my whole plan is, well, I'll just call for help. Good luck.
Yeah.
And that's just not a plan. And so I would
Well,
say,
let's put a pin in it right there then, because
sure.
what I would offer then to the average person out there that's not security minded, let's just use that
Hmm.
term,
Hmm.
maybe that is literally step one. Like, step one is you need to sit down with your family and you need to recognize that you do not have a plan.
Right.
Your plan right now is someone else will take care of it and we can call 911. If that is your plan, I'm not being critical of you in a negative
No.
way, but if that is your plan, you have to come to the understanding that you don't have a plan. So
Right.
that's number one right there.
Sure it is. And appealing to men's heads of household, to men, to heads of household, to fathers, protecting your family is a charge that you own. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say that right off the bat. I'm not disparaging mama bears. The mama bears are very important, and the Bible talks about she bears pretty positively if you think about it. So I'm not going to mess with the mama bears here either. But parents in general, you have a responsibility to be prepared for emergencies within your home, and anywhere you take your family. So the first right out of the gate, one of the first things I would say that anyone needs to do is to know what could happen. To at least have an idea of things, just to acknowledge that something could go wrong where we are.
Yeah.
If I walk
Yeah.
around with my head in the sand and fail to acknowledge that something could go wrong, then I'm already way behind in this, and thinking that, well, church is safe, and so I'm safe when I'm in the church building. Is it? I mean, things happen, and I don't mean it's going to be something where it's an active aggressor event, or it's like the situation in Minnesota. It may be Sister Mabel falls out in the middle of church. I mean, it
Yeah.
could be something that's totally innocuous that just happens. And so churches become a space now that's not, it's not the safe space.
Right.
And so acknowledging that something could go wrong, that just having the mindset that something could go wrong and I'm going to have to deal with it. That
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to avoid it. I can't just put my head in my phone. I can't just walk away. I've got to engage this somehow. Now,
Yeah.
I do want
Well,
to pause there.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me say a couple of things about that, because those are conversations that I've had within my own family, and
Sure.
I like to think that my family is probably fairly representative of the average family out there. I mean, I've got two daughters, I've got a son. You know, the first thing I would say is when it comes to being aware, okay, there is a difference between situational awareness and paranoia.
Right.
Those are not the same thing,
They're
okay?
not. And that's
And I
exactly what I
know,
was going to say.
yeah, I mean, I know, especially like if I use my 16-year-old daughter as an example, okay? She's just gotten to the point where she's kind of driving on her own, going places. And I am the guy that's going to be like, listen, before you get out of your car to pump the gas, make sure you know what's going on around you. If you're standing there at the gas pump, do not be sitting there staring at your phone. That's not dad being paranoid. That's dad saying, I recognize that there are, unfortunately, potential threats out there, and you need to be situationally aware. So that's number one. Number two, which is, I think, something you just touched on, which I think is huge, And this is really, to me, where training comes in, is you can have situational awareness, but if you have not mentally contemplated and physically trained to actually respond, you won't.
Mhm. You will not, and that's just a simple fact. You people, and again, this is the cliche, right? You do not, I don't care how many television shows tell you otherwise, you do not, people in general, you will not. That is, write it down. Randall Roby said it, whatever today's date and time is, write it down. You will not rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
You will fall to your level of training,
And that
whatever that
includes you
level
and
of
I.
training is. That includes you and me. Absolutely it does.
Absolutely.
And so I will fall to my level of training. You will fall to your level of training. The Navy SEALs say it. I mean, that's their mantra, that you're not going to rise to the occasion when everything is down and your backs are against the wall. You're going to fall to your level of training. Now, does that mean everybody needs to be a tactical expert and have, advanced medical training and everything else? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Your training, your level of training, mom, dad, whatever, I don't care. Your level of training could be, let's get the heck out of Dodge. Know how to get out of wherever you are. I know I'm going to know multiple exits out of my church building.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
identify multiple exits out of this restaurant so that if I'm sitting in here and there's a disturbance that starts on the other side of this restaurant, I know how I can take my family and we can get the heck out of here. I'm not engaging the threat or anything else. I am removing us from that situation.
Which
Something
is
starts
something.
unfolding. That's legitimate training. That's a
uh,
legitimate option.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, and this is directed more to the dudes out there, because if anybody's going to mess this up, it's going to be us. Okay. One of the first things we teach people, especially in our firearms training, is your number one defense is escape.
Yep. Get out.
You should not have the mentality that if something pops off, you want to get in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That needs to be, if I have to get in the middle of it, I will. But
Yeah.
that's an analysis that you better make pretty solid.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for 27 years as of last week, and 27 years of doing this business, being in the emergency business. I will tell you right now, if a situation popped off in a restaurant or a gas station or anything else while I'm in it, I will be gone quickly.
Yeah.
It's not mine to engage in. I am not responsible for engaging in that. I'm not responsible for stopping a situation. That's not my role. My role is to not become a victim.
Right.
I am going to leave that situation, protect myself, go home to my family. That's my
Exactly.
responsibility.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I'm with you on that. If I stop to get gas and something bad starts happening,
I,
unless I have to engage
yeah,
it,
yeah,
I have to understand I've got a wife and kids at home that depend on me.
yep,
I cannot forfeit that for
nope,
something that doesn't pose a direct threat to me or them. Now,
nope,
after that, listen, I understand it is not in, I think, the typical man's makeup to watch violence be done to someone else and just
certainly,
walk away from it. Okay.
certainly.
But what I'm saying is there is an analysis that you better perform before you engage.
That's it. And that calculus has got to be done. And
Yeah.
it's one of those situations that you're robbing a store or whatever. I can assure you, I could absolutely not care less that Circle K is about to lose a cash register full of cash. I don't care. I don't care. Um, there's calculus that has to take place, and that goes back to what I was saying is step number one: acknowledging that something could go wrong, and having the mentality that says, yeah, something could go wrong. How am I going to deal with that? My
Mm-hmm.
first option is I want to remove myself and my family from that. The calculus beyond that, yes, we have to talk about it as men, is what am I going to do? What's the calculus if I see somebody who's being assaulted, or I see somebody who is in danger of being, mortally wounded or whatever? Am I going to engage to protect another person? I'm not suggesting that we become cold and calloused and never engage to defend anyone else. I'm saying that my calculus starts with my family depends on me. And so, am I willing to risk my ability to provide for and support and care for my family enough to engage in whatever this situation is?
Yeah. Well,
That's the calculus that has to take place.
let me speak to that on a very specific issue that I think sometimes when we talk broad brush,
Hmm.
I can sense it already. There gonna be some dude that watches this and says, "Man, dadgum, dude, if I saw something like I would intervene. I've got a duty to intervene. I'm a man, that kind of stuff."
Hmm.
Let me say this, and then I want to circle back to the average person, and let's kind of tighten up that point. If I'm at a gas station, we'll just use that example. If I'm at a gas station, I'm pumping my gas, and all of a sudden I hear screaming and yelling, and clearly there's something bad that's going on. And I'm able to visually observe I've got two people fighting, and one of them has a knife in their hand, or one of them has a gun in their hand. Here is the thing that I might not know. Is it the bad guy that has the gun? Or is that the guy that just got attacked and is trying to defend himself against the other? And if I get involved and I pick the wrong one, I might have some serious liability on my hands.
Yep.
So it's beyond, well, I'm a dude, I should do something.
Hmm.
You've got an analysis to make first.
You
But
do.
if we but if we circle back to that average family, and you're talking about, number one, recognize that you could encounter a problem. Okay. And if you're going to encounter a problem, what is that plan? Talk with me for just a moment. And I do, even though this can apply anywhere that a family is, I
Hmm.
do want us to think specifically about churches, because that's kind of what
Yeah.
keyed us up this morning anyway.
Hmm.
I know that when, for example, you've done my personal family security for a number of years now.
Hmm.
And one of the things that happens when you're doing security for me is, between you and I, first of all, there's an understanding that, Josh, I understand you train. Josh, I understand you carry a gun. Josh, I get all that. But in this scenario, I'm in charge. And so I have to, okay, you're the guy in charge. But two of the things that we have always done in our security scenarios is, you brief me and my family beforehand. All of my family is given a code word. And that code word is, if you hear that word, there are no questions asked, there's no discussion to be had. If you hear that word, you are immediately responding the way that we've already established to respond. And we have a central point that we will meet all together. Even if we get separated, there's a known central point. So let's
Right.
put those two things together for the average person who's
Yeah.
going to get up Sunday morning or a month from now or whatever with their family and go to church services. How can they implement that?
Exactly the same way. I mean, it's, having a family emergency plan is, I can't imagine having a family in today's world without having some sort of discussion about what we're going to do in an emergency. I realize, again, I gave it away. I'm 27 years in this business. Yes, I understand. I've been doing this longer than I haven't been doing this, as far as my lifetime is concerned, right? And so I've spent a lot of time in this world, and so yes, that is my mentality. I get that. I just can't imagine not having built a simple family emergency plan, which includes a family crash code. That's the word that you're talking about. It's our secret word that we use, and that crash code, whatever that is for your family, it's that word that when we say it, and we don't say it otherwise. It's not something that
Right.
gets said any other time. It's not something that comes up in conversation. So, I mean, I'm not going to use coffee cup because, that's a word that we say all the time. I'm going to
Everybody's running.
use, yeah, everybody's running constantly. I'm going to use a word that doesn't get used, and a word that we just don't say. And that word then becomes our family's emergency word. And if we say it, then that means there's no more conversation. There's no asking why, what's going on, nothing. No, no, no. We just act. We just move.
Yeah.
and having that conversation and knowing where are we going? Do we have a spot in the house, in the neighborhood, outside the neighborhood? If we're separated, whatever. Because I mean, even let's zoom back out a little bit and say, yes, we're talking about church. If something were to happen there, yes, let's think about that. But if we look at it on a bigger scale, if something goes horribly wrong in the country and we have some major attack that takes, if 9/11 were to happen again, something like that, where we're not sure what's going on, we launched that just to say, hey, this is how we want everybody to act. And no matter where you are, you get to one of these places, and here is we've got an aunt that lives on the other side of the country. That's our central contact point, because let's talk about, we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but with phone systems and the way they work, I mean, you might be able to call somebody across the country easier than you can, in your own
Hmm.
area and all those kind of things, just because of how networks work. But the having all those things in place, and all of this is at ready.gov, by the way. It's super simple. Ready.gov has got a whole thing that you can work through. It's a fill in the
Hmm.
blank deal just for a simple family emergency plan. And having that in place so that when we're at church, if something like what happened in Minnesota happened, and that starts getting disruptive and it gets loud in there and all these kind of things are happening, I can tell you now it's a little different, just because happening to be on our church's safety team, but that's neither here nor there. If I'm just random congregant who happened to be sitting there that day, and all of that starts happening, I can tell you my reaction would be, bye.
Yeah.
I'm out. My family and I are out the door, the closest one I can find. I don't
Yeah.
care if it sets off the emergency alarm, if it's an alarm, whatever. You can deal with that yourself. I'm out,
Yeah.
because I don't like what's happening here. This has gotten to a point where it's not in control. And so I'm gone. I'm going to remove my precious cargo, my precious assets
Hmm.
are leaving that volatile environment,
Yeah.
and we're going somewhere else. Now, that's that's just so simple to me. I understand, because I live in it, but that's something that I hope we can communicate to anybody who hears our conversation, is being willing to take action and not just sit there, paralyzed and unable to move. And that happens, and the reason it happens is because you haven't thought about what you're going
Right.
to do in that situation.
100%. 100%. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So let's take this and let's drill it down and be specific now for the people who don't kind of operate mentally the way that we do on a daily basis, and they don't train the way that we do. Okay. I'm not going to tell you what my family's code word is. You know that. My family knows that. I'm not telling anybody else that code word. But for example, okay, if the code word for me and my family is Everest, all right, what that means is, if I'm together with my family, if we're sitting in the same restaurant together, we're sitting right next to one another in the movie theater, whatever the case is, if I say Everest, there is no discussion about, well, what is it? What's going there? None of that.
Mm-hmm,
It's you get up and you move. And we have a plan that if we're all together, we move a very particular way.
mm-hmm,
If it's me and my two daughters and my wife, we move one way. If my son is also with us, we move a different way. And it's just formation with the way we move.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
If we are separate, so for example, in church services, I sit with my wife and my youngest daughter. My son right now isn't there because he's doing some training that puts him away from home all week long. But but my daughter sits over somewhere else with all her friends. So now it's a text message that has to go out, Everest.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Once that happens, one of the things you have to keep in mind as you sit down with your family is you have to have, going back to something that you mentioned very early in our discussion, if you want to have nothing done, have a committee make the decision. This is not a committee decision.
oh,
When we go out as a family, I am the committee. So if dad says Everest, I don't care if you saw something that I saw or if you didn't see it, if you heard what I heard or you didn't hear it. I am the decision maker. When I say Everest, you
It's
execute the
over.
plan.
Yep.
So that's number one. Come up with a word, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the family understands how to behave once they hear that word. And the next thing I want you to talk about, and it's the way that my family functions, and it's the way that we function when we're under your care doing security. When I say that, when that word goes out, we have a designated location if we are not together that we are to meet. Talk about
Yep.
that.
So that's the next thing, right? So at church, one of the things that I would say is you're going to have we've got your code word in place. If I'm at church, then my designated location is we're going to the vehicle. If I'm launching that word, then our designated meeting location is the vehicle because we're leaving. I mean that's the we're getting out of the building and we're going somewhere else. And so having that, knowing that, hey, if I say this, then don't. Well, there's no conversation to be had. We're going to the vehicle, and we're getting in the vehicle and we're leaving. That's period. That's what's happening. The the other thing is having some predetermined locations in your neighborhood around the church building, knowing that hey, if I can't get to the vehicle, I go to this place. If the vehicle's inaccessible for whatever reason, I'm going to here. There's a gas station, up across the way, away from it or whatever. In my case, there's a hospital that's a half mile down the road, from the church building, that kind of thing. If it's time to leave and we have a designated location, I get there, I can't get there, whatever, I'm going to an alternate location. But knowing that I have these two or three places that are not these are not random. These are not things that we just make up for whatever reason. It's not go to the third tree on the left, and if you're not there, then I think you've been compromised and all. It's nothing like that. What this is to say that instead of just running with the crowd, we have intention on where we're going. That this is purposeful movement. And that's one thing that I know you teach on your tactical training with your firearm stuff. Movement for movement's sake is not helpful. We want purposeful movement. We want movement that's taking us somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not looking to just run with the crowd. I want to be going somewhere and going somewhere with intention. And not worried about what's going on around me and all those kind of things. I am getting to my designated spot, period. That's what I've got to do. And I think that's a really big one. Along with so what we've established is you need to be acknowledging that something could happen, determining that yeah, I'll take action. Here's the action I'm going to take, even if it's just leave. And
Mm-hmm.
if it is leave, here's our code word as a family that we're going to use to say that we're leaving. And if I use the code word, I'm going to one of these two or three locations. That's what we've discussed. It's not complicated. We've
Right.
talked about four things. It's not hard. And that's something that I don't care how old, how young, you can take on that kind of action. People are
Yeah.
smart enough to take on that kind of action. Where people freeze and where people have trouble and why people panic in emergency situations is because they haven't even thought about it. They
Yeah.
haven't even thought about that. Something as simple as I'm going to evacuate if this place catches on fire. They haven't
Okay.
even thought about that.
That's right. And you've said this a couple times. It's simple. What we are describing, it's not like you and I sat down together and I said, listen, man, I need to really pick your brain over 27 years of emergency response training and let's develop this high speed. This is basic stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is not intuitive.
Not intuitive.
It is not intuitive. And you can argue with me about that if you want to at some point in the
Yeah.
future if you're watching this, but I'm telling you it is not intuitive. And one of our trainings that we do, and you'll be familiar with this, there was the nightclub fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the videos that we always use when we're talking about kind of the natural response of individuals. And I'm not going to summarize the whole thing, but basically there's a nightclub, there's a band playing, the pyrotechnics are going off, and there's a major fire that starts.
Mhm.
And when you look at the location of the bodies by the fire marshal, when everything was said and done, the
Yep.
highest concentration of bodies was all piled up with one another at the one door that they all came in
Came in.
trying to get out. Not a single window was broken in that place to get out.
Nope.
Alternative exits weren't used.
Nope.
So I say that to say you might think, oh yeah, well I'll just leave if something bad happens. What's more likely to happen is you are more likely to engage in herd behavior where you simply start to follow everybody else and you have not made any analysis about whether the direction they're going makes any sense or not.
Right.
Okay? So that's why I think you keep harping on plan this in advance.
Hmm.
I mean, look at you. You're probably just like I am, and I think most people are this way. I sit in the same seat every time I go to church services. I mean,
Yeah.
I just do.
Yeah.
I don't float around and sit different places. So it's
Right.
really easy for me to know, okay, I'm going to exit to my right down the stairs. My closest door is right there. That's it.
Right.
And I don't care. If everybody else is running the opposite direction, I don't care unless I can perceive a threat coming from that other direction.
Right. And that is so important, and that's why the fire department, they harp on no two exits out of every room in your home, and all these kind of things. Well, that's why is because, again, the herd behavior, the defaulting to your training, those kind of things that we're talking about. Your training in this case is how you have trained and conditioned yourself to enter and exit that building. Over years of going to the same church building, I enter and exit the same doors
Yeah, right.
because that's where we all come in.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody walks in the same set of glass doors. Everybody walks out the same set of glass doors. That's where we come in. That's where we go out. That's just it. That's the entrance. And so if something happens, the natural instinct of everybody in that building, there's the door,
Go out the way you came in. It,
because that's how I get out of here. But
right, but
never
it might not
mind the
make
fact,
sense.
right? Never mind the fact that 20 feet from me, there's an
Mm-hmm.
emergency exit door that
Mm-hmm.
takes me outside immediately. Nobody goes out that way because it leads to the grass. I mean, it's leading out into the yard. It's an emergency exit for a reason. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
normal exit. Nobody goes out that door. But I'm looking at it going, man, it's 20 feet away from me. That
Right,
other one is 120 feet through 400 people.
right, right.
I got this one
So
20 feet away from me. So guess
yeah,
where I'm going? I
right.
don't care who looks at it and goes, what is he doing? I don't care. If it's time for me to leave that building because of an emergency, I'm going out the closest door I can find that's not directly toward the threat. And that's the thing is unless you've thought about that, though, people will walk right past that door.
Because it's not the door they always go in and out.
That's not the door they go out.
Yeah,
It's not the
yeah,
way out. It's not the way everybody else is going. And that's the herd mentality that you were talking about.
yeah.
Because if the whole herd's running toward the door, well, then I've got to go too, because that's where safety is, because that's where
Right,
the herd's going. It may not be. It may not be the best way out of there. That's why the stopping for a minute and thinking about what could go wrong, and having a simple plan of this is how I'm going to escape this or engage this, whatever it might be, then that can be the difference between a successful exit from a situation or being caught in getting trampled or whatever when it does come to a situation that you have to exit. I mean, we're talking about this
right.
from not from the church safety team's perspective. This is just from the average congregant's perspective.
That's right. And so let's recap that for if you've made it this far in the video, let's kind of recap. So the only thing we've done a lot of talking, but the only thing we've put in front of you to establish as a family unit is number one, sit down with your family and at least acknowledge the state of the world. Okay. Acknowledge. Yes, our desire is that we will go to church services on Sunday and it'll be a normal day and nothing happens. But let's at least acknowledge that there is the possibility that something bad could happen. Okay. Now that we've acknowledged that, let's move on to step two, which is what is our family plan? And our family plan, if we had to title it, is escape. We need to get away from whatever the threat is. Now, how do we do that? We're going to develop a code word for our family. That's our action. When that word goes out by one person, one designated person, then that triggers the response. And if the response is escape, and we can get into weeds on all this stuff, but right now I'm not worried about that. If the word is triggered and escape is our plan, then primary exit is this one, secondary exit is this one. Once we are out of the building, we are meeting at this location first. That's our number one go to. If for some reason we can't get to number one, you go to number two.
Mhm.
And that's simple, because what that tells me is I anticipate by the time me and my wife, if our kids aren't right there next to us, by the time we get to location number one, I should see three kids there.
Okay.
If I don't, after a designated period of time, I'm moving to location number two.
Yep.
But my kids also know, hey, I wasn't able to get to location number one because I got caught up with this, that, or the other. They're not here. I know where they're at. They've moved to location number two.
Yep.
Just build that. I mean,
And
you got your first two right there.
you're done. And even something as simple as that puts you so much further ahead than the average schmuck walking down the street, that your family then is in a position to survive most of the things that take place, or that would take place within the facility. I mean, it is really that simple. And I know it sounds counterintuitive. Well, it can't be that easy. It can't. Well, there's a lot of technical stuff that we could dive into, and we could spend hours here talking about how the tactical operations of dealing with that situation that occurred in Minnesota, or what happened with Covenant, or any a number of things that might go on in a building. We can talk about the minutia all day, but we don't need to miss the forest looking at all the trees.
Yeah,
The bigger picture here for the average person, your responsibility is your family and keeping them safe and going home. And if
yeah,
that's your responsibility, it's as simple as acknowledging that something could happen, having that plan in place on how we're going to react if it does, and having the action word in place that you're
yeah.
ready to execute the plan. That
And
it
look,
really is that simple.
and I'll tell you this, and this is just for me, okay? My circumstances may not be unique, but they are my circumstances, and they might not apply to somebody else. But you're right. We could spend, I mean, you and I can stay on this thing till midnight tonight talking about the what ifs. What if this? What if that? What if this, right? But when it comes to my family, our basic flow works just like this. This is our word. If I call that word, you're moving. The plan is get to this particular spot. If you're not at that particular spot, get to this particular spot. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that we have added in as a family, because of the way that my responsibilities, the way I view them, okay, is I am the primary person responsible for directing the movement. So, in other words, if my family is together, or we have been able to meet at the stairwell, kind of because we're sitting in different places, but we meet there and then we're moving together. It is my primary responsibility to do two things in my plan. Number one is to guide my family to spot number one. And number two, to engage anything that has to be engaged only to protect my family. If
Right.
that happens, then my wife becomes primary on movement, and it doesn't matter what's happening with me.
Right.
If I am engaged, you don't stop and wait for dad. You
Right. You
continue to
go.
move, but now my wife is primarily responsible for movement,
Right.
and that's it. I mean, that's the plan.
Yeah. No. I hope folks can understand that what we're talking about here is not this thing that, oh, I need to spend hours and hours and days thinking about this and all the things that could go wrong and all that. you there's no reason to spend that kind of time on it. There's really not.
Well, and you'll get
It
overwhelmed and bogged
you
down
will.
and
You
produce
will.
nothing.
You will. And so this is something that's what I'm talking about, that at ready.gov, the simple family emergency plan that's there. uh, you can spend a half hour on it and will have so much detail and so much done that it will make it, you'll feel better. I promise you'll feel better, because you'll look at it after you finished it and you go, I know that was really simple, but at the same time, it feels good that we've brought all of this together and have put it in something that makes sense. It's
Right.
organized.
Right.
And it just, that little step of taking a few minutes to build out that organizational plan is worth so much on the
Yeah. Let me
back end when something happens.
let me ask you this, and we'll kind of wrap it up for today. I think this has been a great conversation. I'm really glad we did
Enjoyed it.
this, but let me ask you your opinion about this. You already know my opinion on it, but one of the things that we teach our clients on all of our courses, but it comes up a lot in firearms training, is if you come to my class on Saturday and you do my basic pistol asset course,
Hmm.
if you don't pick your weapon up again and train with it for 6 months, you're not you're not ready. You're
No.
not ready. When we're talking about this kind of plan,
Hmm.
and let me be clear here, I'm not suggesting that anybody go to church services on Sunday and practice their code word and freak everybody out. Okay, don't do that. But do you find benefit in basically practicing this? Saying, okay, hey,
Yes.
listen, on Saturday, you can do it at home. On Saturday, we're going to all sit in the living room, or we're going to sit in the living room, and the kids, y'all go to your bedroom. And at some point during the day, you don't know when, dad is either going to call out the code word or he's going to send a text message. Execute, practice
Hmm.
it. Do you see value in doing that?
Absolutely. And of course, again, I, I'm a 27-year guy. Understand that. Just hear who it's coming from. Take it for what it is. I recommend it, but I know most people are not going to do it. But just hear this. My family, we do fire drill. My family, we do a severe weather drill. That happens at least once a year, and we do have our code word. And I ask routinely, "What is our code word?"
Mm-hmm.
Just to see if they remember it. And hey, and that's something that I'll do over dinner. We'll be sitting around the dinner table. We're one of those weird families that still sits down as a family,
Right,
every night and
right.
has dinner. And I will literally be sitting at the table, and I will say, "Hey, what's our code word?" It's a random, just a random Tuesday that I'll
Mm-hmm.
ask that question, and the response to that tells me whether or not we have talked about it enough. Because
Right.
if they go, I don't remember," it's like, okay, we need to have
Yeah, let's
we
have a
need to have another
refresher.
discussion.
Yeah.
But remembering that code word, and hey, if you ever hear me say that, what does that mean? And just having that conversation every now and then. And again, the fire drill that we do at home is not, it's not like it is at school where so we're all going to line up and all this kind of, no, it's not
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I will take I'll take a smoke detector off the ceiling and I'll set it off and just see who comes out of their room.
Right. Who does
Does
something more
anybody
than cut the music up on their earbuds? Yeah.
exactly? Does anybody poke their head out and take a look around? You
Yeah.
know, um, to see if I get a reaction from anybody. Um, we do, and I'm proud of the fact that yes, they do react, and they react the way that I've asked them to. I ask them about ways out. Got one bedroom on the back side of the house. It's kind of high up off the ground, and we've got an emergency ladder that
Yep.
sits right next to the
Yep.
window there. So that if we have to go out of that one, then we've got a ladder to get us
Yeah.
out of there. Those are little things that we've talked about and that we do as a family. That it's just a few minutes. It
Yeah.
doesn't take a lot of time. We're not I don't just sit around talking about emergencies and disasters with my family. That's not what we
Right.
do.
Right. Right.
We spend more time arguing about our various football teams that we support than we do,
Yeah.
any of that. And so
But
I'm not telling people that they need to just dedicate a whole Saturday to this. I'm saying just take a few minutes. Just
yeah.
take a few
Well,
minutes.
and to be fair, take a few minutes and apply the same rationale that you already apply to other things. I mean,
Yeah,
right now, you and I are both to some degree snowed in. Okay,
yeah,
there are people right now who we can make fun of it all we want to, and there is some funny to it, but they went out and they got milk, bread, eggs before the snow came.
yeah.
Okay, now some of them went a little crazy, but why did you do that? Because you
Why?
recognized
Yeah.
there is the possibility, right?
Hmm.
Some of you filled up your gas tank before you came home Friday. Why?
Right.
Because you recognized that. Okay.
Hmm.
Some of you walked outside and you picked the windshield wipers up off of your windshield so they wouldn't freeze. Why? Some of you are going to check your smoke detector batteries. It's the same rationale that you're doing in other things. It's
Yep.
just that you recognize the problem that creates the necessity on those things.
Hmm.
What we want you to do is say, okay, recognize the state of the world we live in right now. Number one, recognize that that's a possibility. Threats are a possibility. And so,
Sure.
what is my plan? And that's it.
Right. That's it. That's it. And to take just that few minutes to put that stuff on paper is it makes all the difference in the world,
Yeah.
for family preparedness. Like I said, seeing this over and over again, in Memphis during disaster response down there, I, you could tell the families who had had these conversations and the ones who hadn't. You see it on the news all the time. The horrible stories of the house that catches on fire, and then one of the statements that they make in the news story all the time, well, there was no working smoke detector in the home, or
Hmm.
there was a working smoke detector in the home. Everybody got out safely. All these kind of things. I mean,
Hmm.
it's those little things like that that it doesn't take much. It really
Right.
doesn't. We're talking about minimal effort for maximum value.
Right.
And I mean,
But
it's such a simple trade.
the smoke detector that you walk past every single day and never think about it,
Right.
once it goes off, because you have conditioned yourself, you respond.
You respond.
That's all
That's
we
all
want
this
you to
is.
do on this.
That's it.
Hey, dude, thank you so much for this conversation,
Enjoyed
man.
it,
This
man.
is this has been
Good.
fun. Stay warm over there in
Yeah,
West Tennessee.
trying. It's cold,
And
man.
yeah, I know, man. It's the same thing here.